Hey guys, Mr. Offer. Welcome to History 1302, Section 3. Now, this is part one of what will be a three-part series. Remember, guys, we're always referring to our PowerPoint. You see me looking over there. So, in this one, we're going to talk about urbanization and imperialism. We start off by talking about our 25th president, a guy named McKinley. Now, McKinley was 54 years old. He's a Republican. In McKinley, most people really don't know a lot about McKinley. His vice president will become very famous. We'll talk about that in a minute. We don't know who he is, most of us, but when I talk about his vice president, you're going to know who he is. So McKinley is one of the first presidents that will be elected that he was, had really not a whole lot to do with the American Civil War. He was a teenager during the war. You got to remember, guys, at this point in this class, the American Civil War really shaped our politics because of guys like Grant, Rutherford Hayes, all these men that were involved in the American Civil War will be involved in politics. McKinley's kind of that first one that won't. You see that a lot, guys, in wars. I mean, World War II is the same way. We're going to have a lot of men that will serve as our presidents that had some involvement in the Second War. So anyway, we come up at this point, guys, we're in about the 1890s. $960 million of American goods were now sold. America is really taking its place. We're not considered a world leader yet, but we're pretty close to it. Now, you'll have a couple of things during McKinley's term. You're going to have the Panic of 1893, which, remember, a panic means recession. We're going to have the Spanish-American War. Now, that's often confused with the Mexican-American, which that's back in 1301. The Spanish-American War will be fought over in Cuba, and McKinley will be our president at that time. That war starts, and we're going to briefly kind of explain to you, the sinking of the USS Maine. Now, the Maine was over in Cuba, and the Maine is sunk, and we blame the Spanish for doing this. Now, the interesting thing about that, guys, is now they've looked at that, and the Maine, that was an accidental explosion. Nobody blew that thing up. A lot of people felt America wanted to go to Cuba. We wanted to get a foothold into Cuba because of the agriculture. It was controlled by Spain at that time, okay? And we wanted to take that term imperialism, moving out. The one thing that Americans usually don't like, we don't use the word colonization. The Philippines, all these different, Guam, all these different little places we never call them a colony. Now, if England possessed them, they would call those places colonies. So why does the Americans not like that word colony? We were a colony. So you will never use, instead it's imperialism. We're moving our borders out. So we will go to war. We'll talk a little bit about that. Now, the interesting thing about McKinley, or not interesting, maybe good or bad, I don't know, is going to be McKinley will be our second president that will be assassinated. His assassination will lead to his vice president taking over. And y'all are all going to know who his vice president is. So, we're going to kind of end that here. We're talking about McKinley, talking about expansion, imperialism. Now we're going to talk about, after he's assassinated, his vice president takes over. Who was this guy? You're going to know him.